Hello, everyone. It is Monday, May 16th, and our budget vote and capital project vote are tomorrow from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I want to take a moment and go through a few slides with you with the help of Mr. Dawkins to answer any follow-up questions that may have happened during the last few weeks. I'm sharing my screen with you right now, and I'm only highlighting a very few parts of the budget. You'll see on this slide, this is really the nitty-gritty of our budget. Our goal is to maintain program for next year. Our property tax levy that we are establishing is $32,504,000 to make our budget even. That would be a 2.9% increase. And if you look at your newsletter, it clearly states the approximate per $100,000, what that means to all of you, depending on what town you live in. Our working budget from last year to this year is an increase of 0.97%. When I look at the categories from last year to this year, you'll see that 624,000 is the 0.9%. Obviously, our differences where we want them to be are instruction and employee benefits. We did have slight decreases in transportation, debt service, and intertransfer funds, and that helped us get to the 0.97%. You'll notice budget to budget years, our history of expenditures, hard word, I guess, on a Monday afternoon. You'll notice that we did have a slight uptick last year. However, that uptick was taken care of because it had to do with our last building project, and that money was reimbursed with us from our state resources. So while the percent did increase, it did not affect our percent overall for our taxpayers. This is an example of what we've been doing over the last 8 years. And you'll see that as an average, our tax increases have been about 2.79. And this year we are going out at 2.9%. One thing I do want to point out for this year, we talk about the tax cap at 2%. It's really in our growth factor and our inflation rate. Our inflation rate that they are considering this year is 4.7%. So when we had to figure out the calculation of this, we actually have to use that 2%. Luckily, we do not have to use a 4.7% because it is quite high right now. The next thing that you'll be voting on is the capital project Envision 2025. In that project, we have several things that are taking place at the elementary schools. We have to do partial roof replacements in 2 buildings. We're upgrading toilets. We're renovating the nurses' offices to be ADA compliant. We have some exterior door replacements for safety. We want to replace chalkboards, gym floors, classroom flooring, to provide digital sites, electrical panels, drainage. A lot of this comes from our building condition surveys that we do on a regular basis to ensure that our buildings are in the best shape they possibly can be in. The middle school is where you're going to see the most changes as far as all of the buildings go. It was the one that was touched the least in our 2015 capital project. And so here's our potential scope overall. Pretty much almost the entire building, besides the 6th grade wing, would be touched in some way. We are looking at changing our LGI to more of a performance space. Our library will get new refinishes. Our general classrooms in the front of the building will get lighting, ceilings, floors, chalkboards. Our science rooms are getting done. Our choral rooms, our band rooms, our technology rooms are getting done. Our home and career and family science, family consumer and science rooms will be getting done. We'll be renovating the locker rooms to improve finishes and provide improved line of sight. Obviously, then refinishing the gym floor. We are looking at how we enter the main office suite, guidance suite, and nurses suite. So that way we can provide additional security for the front of the building. And then we're also adding water filtration systems in. Here are 2 pictures of what the front entrance would look like. We want to make it more open space so that it's more welcoming and more readily usable to start the work. These are renderings of what our new space would look like in the large group instruction room. We kept the architecture of the old, but those seats are retractable. And then the theater is like the wood theater, where it's down on the floor. The reason why we wanted the retractable seatings is because then also we could do plays in the round or have other activities in there without those seats there for that. This is an example of what a science classroom would look like. Want it to be a very movable space. You want it to make sure that there's multiple points of presentation and students have the ability to be in a modern science classroom. Tim, can you think of any questions that were asked of us from the middle school?
No, I think just the big question that was asked was how did we really decide on what we were going to do at the middle school and who was involved in sharing a voice when we were discussing what to do next there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we meet with each group when we knew that the middle school project was going to be very heavy in instructional changes. We meet with instructional teacher leaders, we meet with groups of teachers, we meet with the principal, the assistant principals, guidance, and we will continue to do that if the budget gets passed and if the capital project gets passed to help us with the design phase. So we did field trips to other theaters with our music people to ensure that we were giving them the best spaces possible. So it really is a group effort, and our architecturists like to make sure that we are talking to as many people as possible to get the right information in. So next we're going to the high school. The high school, if you've been in this building, the majority of it was renovated in the last project. We did not update our guidance suite, and we wanted to be a more creative and inviting space for our students. And we do have to renovate the nurses suite. We will be hiring an athletic trainer through our ESSER funds and then putting it in the budget permanently. And so we do want through the project to create an athletic trainer's office to support our athletic needs for that. We also have some exterior work that we need to do, and that includes fixing the building, but also our athletics. And obviously this is where the pictures are that you see, because we had to really do a lot of design to get our numbers correct for this. So we want to provide a synthetic turf field. We want to reconstruct the track. We want to provide athletic lighting in our stadium. We want to have new updated bleacher systems. Obviously, we want to have updated fencing. We want to improve our irrigation systems at the high school, the middle school, and then you'll see at Tanglewood. We'll provide additional parking where we need to. But also we need to make sure all of our fields meet the ADA requirements and are created to support our students and visitors with special needs. Middle school and Tanglewood, you'll see what those look like. Middle school is just the irrigation, but Tanglewood, you'll see what it looks like right here. So this is a scope of our two main outdoor projects here for Envision 2025, and they happen to be on a Google map right near each other. So we're able to lay it out on one slide. Currently, our stadium is right here for letter B. So in our first attempt at looking at where we should place our stadium, we looked at how do we expand and keep it at letter B. One goal that was quickly nixed was our keeping our fields ADA compliant. Tanglewood Drive is a no parking. So in order for our fans to get all the way to letter B, they have to park in this parking lot and walk directly over to that. And it would take up space for that. So whether it was here or here, ADA compliance really drove the conversation of how do we get this field closer to a spot where we can meet the needs of our students and families. And we landed it here. And by removing the track here, we now have two regulation width and length fields to play on, and a third one down here that we already did at the last project. Also, by moving the track to Tanglewood, we're able to move it to an 8-lane track. This allows, again, this width in here to be regulation to make sure that we could also play on that in the fall if we needed to. We had to relocate the baseball field, which is now in the right position for sun. And we added this, this access on this side for vehicles. And then we added a parking lot. As for Tanglewood, there will be a gate here somewhere, and Tanglewood would be separate from the entrance into this parking lot. The only time that this would be open is if we were having a track meet or something and we needed people to park here and access in both places. I'm going to show you a picture of what Tanglewood would look like as a rendering, and stop here because I know, Mr. Dawkins, that we both encountered some questions with Tanglewood.
Yeah, I think the first question that I've heard is, why is it so important for us to move a stadium over onto the Tanglewood property when we already have a stadium with a 6-lane track at the high school?
So our 6-lane track wanted to turn into 8 lanes. In order for us to have that space to do that, we simply would not be able to have that at the high school. We thought about putting that track around in the current stadium, because there's a lot of schools that do that. But then that letter B field would not be at the correct width. I want to point out too that when we're looking at this space, we have a large amount of trees. Our tree line is right here right now. So when we look at our tree line, we think that right now, based on what this picture looks like, we're just putting this in to current property. And that's not the case. Our tree line is right here. You'll see it from right there to right there. And we would be taking down these trees to add in all 3 of these fields, or 2 fields, excuse me, and the parking lot.
Another question I got is, have we considered whether or not there will be disruption to the Tanglewood Elementary School day or end of day as our students go from the high school to those competition facilities?
So as we stated right here, we'll have a walking path. So it'll be at the edge. So the idea is for the students who are walking to come directly from the high school right to that path. So they would not be near the fields of the elementary school. Also, because of the gate here, the only entrance in would be to here. And as I said, this is treed right now. So this is far enough back where we should not have any complications for that. Mr. Greep will keep his eye on times and things to ensure that student release is done properly at the elementary school without it being affected by the athletics. I think another piece that people brought up as far as being affected by, if Tanglewood's being affected by anything, would be in the idea of what about the space around this now that we're opening it up? Will there be fencing? The short answer is in the project, there is not fencing. However, that doesn't mean there's never going to be fencing. We wanted to take a look. We want to first tear down the trees if this goes through, and we want to be able to walk our property at that point. And then our maintenance guys will make a determination as to where, if, when, how, what is needed for fencing, and we will add that in at the appropriate places. Right now, without that tree line being cut, it's really hard to make those determinations right now for that. Can you think of any other questions for Tanglewood at this point, Mr. Dawkins?
No, I think those were the most popular ones that I've encountered.
Great. I want to mention that in this current project, there is no lighting or PA systems on this. The future of any other projects could have that, but at this time, this is not a lit field. The only field that would be lit would be in our new stadium. Lighting has changed drastically in the last several years as far as athletics go. So our hope would be we put in the lighting here so people can truly understand that we're no longer illuminating very large, gigantic spaces and into houses. We're really keeping it centralized on our own campus for that. And you'll see how these 2 fields line up so that way we're able to get 2 fields in. If we had to put the track in right here, we would lose out on a portion of this field for it. So handicap parking would be right here. We would have a walkway. We do have a plan for updated bathrooms. However, we are still well in septic. So therefore, we have to be very cautious of what those updated bathrooms look and feel like. We do have a concession stand planned for here, which would be updated. We just put in this 2-sided scoreboard. This will stay for these 2 fields, and we would be adding a scoreboard in somewhere over here for that. So these are the 4 things that you're going to be voting on when you come to the buildings of Ballard or Tanglewood tomorrow. The first one is the budget on the 2.9% tax levy. Proposition 2 has no tax impact. Each year we purchase additional buses, so that way we're on a rotational basis. Proposition 3 is Envision 2025, and that is a capital project. It has a 0 additional tax impact. We're able to use our current reserves in order to make this project happen. And then Proposition 4 is the election of 3 of our board member seats, and we have 4 board members running. Dr. John Leary and Heidi Brennan would be new to the board, and incumbents Tom Kurtz and Jeff Riggy are applying again. Their bios can be seen on our website. If you go into anything that has to do with voting, you'll be able to see them there for that. So that's really the questions that we had and we wanted to talk about today as quickly as possible. However, I will be checking my email all night and tomorrow. So if you have any other questions that you want me to answer to make sure you have the right information when you decide to vote, please let me know. Again, you are voting tomorrow from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at Ballard or at Tanglewood, depending on the town you live in. Thanks for listening. Thanks for coming to see us tomorrow to get out the vote, and have a great night.